In these two problems here, we're going to solve the missing parts of a right triangle. And we have to have a right triangle to do this. And you can notice in both the problems, it's a right triangle. Okay, over in this problem, I'm given the 5 and the angle 19. So I'm missing the hypotenuse, I'm missing the adjacent. Why do I call it adjacent? Well, if you pretended like you were standing right there at the 19 and your arms were open in this direction, you would be looking out this way, so this side will be called the opposite. It's opposite the angle. Hypotenuse is obvious, and what's left would be the adjacent. Okay, in this problem, we are given the opposite side and we're given the angle. So of our choices, of all three of the trig functions, the one I'm going to be using either is going to be the sine or else it's going to be the tangent, because in both of those we are dealing with the opposite and the angle. Angle, opposite, angle, opposite. Okay, so if I look at the sine of this angle, the sine would be opposite over hypotenuse. I'm going to call the hypotenuse Q. So the sine would be 5 over Q. The sine from the calculator is 0.3255. So I'm going to write that, and I'm going to take the 5 over the Q and I'm going to make a proportion. And then I can cross multiply. So it's 0.3256 times Q equals 5. We're going to divide both sides by this decimal. And then Q would equal 5 divided by 0.3256. And that will give us a decimal answer. And we can decide how many digits we want to use in that particular answer. So that would be this side here. Once I have two of the sides, I can use the Pythagorean theorem to get n. Another way to get n would be to use the 5 and the n and the angle. Now we're talking opposite, adjacent, and angle. Opposite, adjacent, and angle is obviously the tangent. So the tangent of the 19 degrees from the calculator is 0.344. You can do that from your calculator. That would equal 5 opposite over adjacent n. Again, we're cross multiplying. So we get 5 times 1 equals 0.3443 times n. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.3443. So 5 divided by the decimal would equal n. Again, we will get an expression in a decimal form, and we can decide how many digits. Over in this particular triangle, we're given two sides and we don't know the angle. Over in the first one, we knew the angle. If we're looking for the angle, we have to decide which trig function deals with the given information. Well, again, opposite side hypotenuse. Opposite hypotenuse is the sine. So if I knew the angle, I would say sine of A equals opposite over hypotenuse. Well, in this problem, I don't know the angle, but I do know the opposite and the hypotenuse is 2 over 9. 2 divided by 9 gives me this decimal. The trig calculator will give us the different angle values using the different inverse trigs. We actually chose to use the inverse sine because opposite and hypotenuse deal with sine. So the inverse sine would be 12.83, right? 12.84 degrees.